Welcome back to Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets on Mayo Media Network. I'm your host, Hahn. A lot to get into on today's show as we have 11 games in the NHL on Thursday night. Before we get started, remember to like the show, subscribe to the channel. If you do know someone that might be interested in this, remember to share it around as well if you can. Can't waste too much time because we do have a lot to get into here. So let's kick things off with the first game on the 11-game card. The Boston Bruins minus 125 favorites on home ice against the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid and the boys coming into Beantown, plus 105. Edmonton on the road. Over-under set at 6 for this game. Oilers are 9-2 on the season. They've been really, really solid. I kind of feel like they've been playing a bit of a soft schedule for the most part, but you can only play the teams in front of you. Coming off a 4-2 loss to the Red Wings on Tuesday. So they finally hit a bit of a bump in the road. I thought Detroit looked good in that game. And once again, I thought Edmonton looked a little sleepy through about 40 minutes. They wake up in the third period, but it's too little too late. They were able to pull off that comeback on the weekend against the New York Rangers. This is game 2 of a 5-game trip for the Edmonton Oilers and probably their toughest test so far, a road matchup against the Boston Bruins. The Bruins are 5-0 at home this season. So really, really solid on home ice. They did edge Ottawa 3-2 on Tuesday in their last game. They hung on in that one. Boston's been top heavy again. They just don't get anything from the depth guys right now. And that's something that could be an issue for them down the road. But I don't think it will be an issue in this matchup. I won't be making a bet on this game, but I do lean towards the Boston Bruins on home ice. It's hard to ignore that 5-0 record. I think they'll do their best, that defense in Boston, to slow down Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and let everybody else beat them. So this will be a pass for me, but I do lean toward the Bees on home ice. Next game on the card, the Calgary Flames, minus 120 favorites on the road in Montreal. The Habs plus 100 on home ice, over under set at 5.5 for this game. The Flames have lost 3 of their last 4 after a red hot start to the season, 4-1 loss to San Jose on Tuesday. But they have played well in those games. Even though they've lost 3 of those 4 games, I'm watching those games. I feel like Calgary is right there. They're playing just as good as they were before. They're just finding ways to lose. They're running into hot goaltenders. This is a start of a 7-game road trip for Calgary as well. So tons of road hockey coming up here for the Flames. They've got Toronto on Friday and Ottawa on Sunday to close out an Eastern Canadian part of their trip here to kick things off. The Habs have lost 3 games in a row. What's new? They've just been brutal this year. Have only beat 1 team in the league, not named the Detroit Red Wings. Well, lucky for them, they do play Detroit again on Saturday. So we'll see if they can go 3 for 3 against the Red Wings on Saturday. But Montreal has been no good against basically anybody else in the league right now. They face a Flames team that can really, really suffocate you and lock things down. And Montreal already has trouble generating scoring chances and scoring goals to begin with. So I think this is a bad matchup for Montreal, similar to what we targeted last week when they faced the New York Islanders. I think this is kind of a similar matchup style here. And I like the Calgary Flames. Minus 120, I think, is a very fair price on the road here to kick off a road trip. If you want to lay the puck line, I don't mind that as well. Minus 1.5 for plus 190 on DraftKings Sportsbook, I think is pretty solid odds for the Flames. Next game on the card, the New York Islanders, minus 135 favorites on the road in New Jersey to take on the home dog New Jersey Devils, plus 115. Over under set at 5.5 for this game. The Isles have 3 games left on their monster 13-game road trip. Only game this week for the Isles. It's been a weird schedule where they haven't been playing a lot. They've been able to go back home, hang out a little bit, then go continue the road trip. They split their games on the weekend in Winnipeg and Minnesota, which was a tough part of their road trip. So they found a way to split those 2. Semyon Varlamov is healthy again, but it looks like Ilya Sorokin is probably going to be the guy, at least for the foreseeable future there between the pipes. Devils quietly putting together a nice start to the season. It feels like not a lot of people are talking about them, but they're 3-1-2 in their last 6 games. They beat Florida 7-3 on Tuesday. They put up a 7 spot against the Florida Panthers. The Panthers were playing the second half of a back-to-back on Tuesday night, but still it was an impressive effort for the New Jersey Devils with no Dougie Hamilton in the lineup either. We know Jack Hughes is out long-term. Dougie Hamilton is day-to-day, so he could possibly play in this game, but they're getting it done without Dougie Hamilton in the lineup right now, which is pretty impressive. I'll have no bet on this game either. It feels like this is where the line should be. I think the Islanders should be favorites in this game. I just think they are the better team, but I've got a sneaky feeling about these Devils right now. I think they're a tough team to put away, so I don't really want to lay the chalk with the Islanders on the road, and I'm not rushing to bet against the Islanders either. So this one's going to be a pass for me, but it should be a fun hockey game on Thursday night between these 2 division rivals. We've got next game, the red hot LA Kings. I'm talking red hot LA Kings going into Ottawa to take on the Senators. Both teams minus 110. So I'll pick them in this one. Over under set at 5.5. The Kings have won 6 games in a row. This will be their third game in 4 nights. They beat Toronto on Monday night. They beat Montreal on Tuesday night. Then they get a day off and they get Ottawa here to wrap up a pretty busy part of their schedule. The Sens, on the other hand, complete opposite to LA. They've lost 5 games in a row. They were competitive in the 3-2 loss against Boston on Tuesday, but they continue to find ways to lose hockey games, and they've just been really struggling in their own end. They have some COVID issues right now as well, with Connor Brown, a top 6 forward, out amongst some other players. So Ottawa's not in a great spot right now. I don't think this is the best spot for LA, just playing their third road game in 4 nights. I think that's always difficult for teams, but they're rolling right now. It's hard to fade these teams when they get on that kind of streak. And guys like Kempe and Iafallo, who we'll talk about a bit later for DraftKings, they've been really, really good. Kopitar has been great this year for the Kings. So if I'm making a play, it's Kings or pass for me here. Minus 110 for the Kings, I think is fair. I would have liked to get some plus money on the road. I bet the Kings against the Leafs and the Habs and got plus money in both of those matchups. So I was a little disappointed when I saw the line, but I think odds makers are starting to catch on to this LA Kings team. So Kings or pass for me in this one. Next game on the card, we've got the Florida Panthers minus 120 favorites on the road in Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins, who are plus 100. Over under is set at 6 for this game. The Florida Panthers started red hot to the season, 10-0-1 to start the year, but they have actually lost their last 2 games in regulation. They've given up 11 goals in the last 2 games, if you could believe that. But a spot of good news for the Panthers. It does look like Sergei Bobrovsky is going to be back and should play this game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Spencer Knight playing a lot of hockey here this week, and he looked leaky. The young goaltender, he's going to be fine in the near future, but he did not play well in the absence of Sergei Bobrovsky. So they'll be glad to get him back because he was playing great before he went down with that injury. The Pens, on the other hand, have lost 5 of their last 6 games, but they have been to overtime in their last 3 games. So they're losing, but they're losing close games. They're finding ways to get points. They've been kind of scrappy with all the issues that they've dealt with this year. 2 shootout losses in a row. But like I mentioned, they still have a lot of issues, a lot of players out of the lineup, including Sidney Crosby. So it's really tough to back the Pens right now. They've been feisty. I give a lot of credit to the players on that roster. They've been a pretty good team for shot props as well. Look at guys like Jason Zucker, Jeff Carter, even Kasperi Kapanen's been going over his total a lot, but I would still lean towards the Panthers in this matchup. Minus 120 on home ice. I don't love the fact that it's their third game in 4 nights, or sorry, I should say minus 120 on the road for the Panthers, but I don't love that it's their third game in 4 nights. So it'll ultimately be a pass for me, but I lean towards the Panthers here on the road in Pittsburgh. Next game, the Detroit Red Wings, home dogs, plus 115 on home ice, with the Washington Capitals coming into town as minus 135 favorites. Over under set at 6 for this game. The Caps snapped a 3-game losing streak on Monday with a 5-3 win against the Buffalo Sabres. They looked good in that game. Alex Ovechkin, what more can you say? He scores every game. He shoots every game. Speaking of shot props, Ovi's just basically money on those. I played him over 4.5 shots on Monday. He went over by the end of the first period. He had 5 shots, and then he scored a goal in the second period as well, which I'm still not sure he touched, but that's okay. We'll give it to Ovi in his chase for Wayne Gretzky. Lost to Detroit 3-2 in overtime a couple weeks ago. So this is the second time that these 2 teams have met this year. The Wings have won 3 games in a row. They look really good. The offense is clicking, especially now with Larkin back. He was out with personal reasons, dealing with a family matter. So hoping everything's okay with Dylan Larkin and his family, but he looks glad to be back, and the Red Wings are glad to have him back. I really do think that he makes a lot happen out there, not to mention some of the other young players that have stepped up for the Wings. They got that win against Edmonton 4-2 on Tuesday. They looked really good doing it. I got to lean towards the Red Wings here. I'm not rushing to bet them at only plus 115. I'd like probably a bit of a better price against a team like the Washington Capitals, who I deem are really good, and Ovechkin's rolling, but I still got to lean towards that plus money on home ice. The Red Wings have shown me a lot over the past few games and a lot over the course of this season. And I think having Dylan Larkin back in the lineup is huge for them. So lean towards the Red Wings in that one. Let's get into the central part of the card. Let's go to Winnipeg, minus 185 favorites, big favorites on home ice against the San Jose Sharks, who are plus 160 road underdogs. over under set at 5.5 for this game. The Sharks are 3-1-1 since they started dealing with some COVID issues. They played a Saturday night game actually against these Jets and then started to deal with these COVID issues. They beat the Flames 4-1 on Tuesday to start this 5-game road trip that they're on. James Reimer will get the call in this game. It was Aiden Hill that beat the Flames earlier this week, but these Sharks have been pesky. You look at their lineup and the line combos and you think, man, how the heck is this team going to win? And they keep finding ways. So I got to give credit to the Sharks. Guys like Hurdle and Couture, Burns have been really good for shot props as well. If you want to take a look at that for Thursday night, Jets have only one regulation loss in their last 10 games. They started slow to this season, but they've been playing much better hockey right now. I'm a big believer in this Winnipeg Jets team. I think they're very legit. I have them coming out of the West actually in my preseason predictions, almost at full health now as well. There's been guys in and out of the lineup. The only real injury right now is Paul Stastny, who's day to day. So Jets are fully healthy. Sharks are not, but it does seem like they're getting some good news on the COVID front. I have to lean towards the Sharks as much as I like the Jets. Plus 160 on the road for a team that's playing like this. I mentioned James Reimer is starting. His numbers are really, really good. I think they could frustrate Winnipeg in this game. And Winnipeg was frustrated earlier this week against the St. Louis Blues in a game. I thought they were clearly the better team, and they came out on the losing end in a shootout. So I'll lean towards the Sharks here at plus 160 on the road. Next game, the St. Louis Blues minus 170 favorites at home. Nashville Predators plus 145 on the road. Over under set at 5.5 for this one. The Preds will be playing their second half of a back-to-back. They'll be in Dallas on Wednesday night, end of a 6-game trip for them as well, which has gone quite well. The Preds have surprised me. They're at least average on the season, so that's not too bad. I had low expectations for the Preds this year. The Blues return home after a 4-game trip where they went 2-1-1. Like I said in the last game, they got outplayed by Winnipeg on Tuesday, but they found a way to win that game 3-2 in a shootout. Binnington looks much better this year. This one will be a no bet for me, but I do think the Blues get this done. It'll be a tough spot for Nashville on the second half of a back-to-back. Next game, which is now currently off the board, at least as I'm recording this, it was minus 190 for the Colorado Avalanche, plus 160 on the road for the Vancouver Canucks, over-under set at 5.5. The reason for this game being off the board is the unfortunate news that Nathan MacKinnon is going to be out for at least 3 weeks for the Colorado Avalanche. So that's bad news for Colorado, bad news for the league, because we all love watching Nathan MacKinnon play hockey. I was going to bet Vancouver in this game regardless at plus 160 before the MacKinnon news came down. So keep an eye on this. Eventually the line will come back up. I like the Canucks, anything, plus 140, plus 135. I'd still be okay playing the Vancouver Canucks. I think they're starting to click. Elias Pettersson's playing much better lately, and this Avs lineup is just too banged up for me to back at the moment. So I like the Canucks in that one. Next game, the Seattle Kraken, minus 175 favorites at home against the Anaheim Ducks, the red hot Anaheim Ducks, plus 150 road underdogs. The over-under set at 5.5 for this game. I really don't understand this line. And Seattle's been overvalued a ton this year for a team that's well below 500. Anaheim comes in red hot, winners of 5 games in a row, 3-2 overtime win in Vancouver on Tuesday. Troy Terry scores the overtime winner. What's new? The guy scores every single game. Ryan Getzlaf is turning back the clock. He looks like he's in his mid-20s again. The Kraken are 4-8-1 in their first season. 2-game losing streak. They've been better at home, I guess. They have a 3-2 record, but there's nothing to write home about here. They really haven't been a team that looks like they're going to dominate anybody, and they're minus 175 favorites. I really don't understand that. They could certainly win this game and end the Ducks win streak, but you're giving me plus 150 with this Anaheim Ducks team right now. I'm going to take them. They're rolling, they're vibing. They're going to go into Seattle and I think play another solid game here to try to keep the streak going. So I love the Ducks at that price. I think that's value. Last game on the card here, the Vegas Golden Knights, minus 120 favorites on home ice. The Minnesota Wild plus 100 on the road, over under set at 5.5 for this game. The Wild will be playing the second half of a back-to-back. They'll be in Arizona on Wednesday. So they do the Arizona Vegas kind of desert double there. Cam Talbot will get the call in this game. It's going to be Kaapo Kähkönen on Wednesday against the Arizona Coyotes. Vegas has won 6 of their last 8 with a depleted lineup. Mark Stone is starting to skate as well. Still no timetable for his return, but there's some good news to go along with the fact that they just traded for Jack Eichel. So down the line, I think Vegas will be a good team once again. And I have to give them credit. They're still winning games with this depleted lineup. I just think Minnesota is the better team here. So I'll be looking to bet the Wild at any sort of plus money. I understand it's a back-to-back. I try to avoid these as much as possible, but I don't think that will concern Minnesota too much, especially because they get to play Arizona on the front end, which is barely an NHL team. So give me the Wild at any sort of plus money here. Into some DraftKings strategy, I think it's a really intriguing night. What do you do with the expensive Oilers? I think that's always the question whenever the Oilers play. What do you do with McDavid? What do you do with Draisaitl? I think it could be a good time to fade these guys and maybe look at some of the other expensive plays if you do want to pay up. I don't mind the Bruins as more of an expensive option in that matchup. Alex Ovechkin as well. I would rather pay up for Ovi against Detroit than I would Connor and Leon against the Boston Bruins, who like to lock things down and play lower scoring hockey games. So look to Ovi if you want to pay up for a player. He continues to shoot a lot, put up huge points. Mikko Rantanen's also not a bad option with that depleted Avs roster. They're going to really lean heavily on him. And he's played well before when Nathan McKinnon has been out of the lineup. So look to Mikko Rantanen, Alex Ovechkin if you want to pay up a little bit. If you're looking for a couple Calgary Flames, I think Johnny Gaudreau and Elias Lindholm are both underpriced on DraftKings on Thursday night. I would say the same thing for a couple of LA Kings. Alex Iafallo has been tremendous lately. He's only $5,300 on DraftKings. Adrian Kempe has been really good as well. He's only $4,100. That just seems too low. I think it could be a good buy low opportunity as well for Jonathan Huberdeau, who isn't having a great season in Florida right now. Not as productive as I would think he would be, but he's only $5,800. There's a few pens I think you could go to in that matchup as well. Kapanen, Zucker, Ryan Rust, they all seem like pretty fair value. Tom Wilson's a name to look at if you do want to get in on the caps, if you want to stack the caps at all. A cheaper option on that top line if you don't want to have to pay up for an Alex Ovechkin. Tom Wilson's affordable. Tomas Hertl, I got to shout out my boy Hertl. Love the guy. $5,700. He's been a beast during the Sharks COVID issues. I still think that's too cheap for Hertl. And Mark Scheifele is only $5,100. I know he's coming back from an injury, but that's just way too cheap for Mark Scheifele. Elias Pettersson, mentioned him earlier. He's heating up. Eye test, he looks really, really good. Back to being the old EP40 that we know. So $6,200 for Elias Pettersson, I think is extremely fair. And Ducks, Terry Getzlaf, why not? Why not keep playing these guys? I mean, they're still fairly cheap. They're fairly affordable while they're rolling. I don't mind those guys as plays either. So to recap the bets, Flames, Canucks, Ducks, and Wild. That's it for me today. As always, good luck with your bets and your lineups. I'll catch you all next week.